Good evening. You're welcome to another edition of A to Z of Export Business Financing, Part 11. A to Z of Export Business Financing, Part 11. Today we'll be looking at overseas representatives as a critical element in financing trade across border. We'll be looking at overseas representative as a critical element in financing trade across borders. This import-export platform brought to you by 3 Thinkers Trade Academy, and my name is Dele Ayemibo. We've been discussing for a while now A to Z of export business financing, and we've been talking about a lot of issues affecting individuals, companies, and corporate organizations that want to either seek for finance or provide financing within that space. In Nigeria today, our export is still very low. When Kenya is doing over $1 billion just for one product, flour, rose flour, we have not been able to do so much. Even the cocoa that used to be very a cash cow from Nigeria in the 60s and 70s is now at the back burner. Small countries like Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana are very much ahead of Nigeria in the production of those commodities. So we need to really do something in this space in effectively financing trade transaction in order to be able to ensure that we grow trade in Nigeria. In December last year, CBN gathered all the bank MDs into a room to brainstorm on this, and a lot of steps have been taken since then. We're hoping to be able to make some significant progress before the end of the year that will begin to help to grow that space, because we also need will on the part of the management of the banks to be able to train their staff and, of course, do some R&Ds. Do some R&Ds. Do some research and development and use some funds to try that market. If that is not done, of course, it's not likely we'll be able to grow that space at all. So we'll go back to what we're discussing, overseas representatives. An exporter with an overseas representative, a partner, a subsidiary, an agent, should clearly state the kind of relationship in the export financing proposal and his role in the export finance transaction. It's very important that if you have overseas representative, number one, you should have overseas representative. A sustainable export transaction, a sustainable export business rather, tends to have overseas representative. The overseas partner can be an agent, can be a distributor. But what is important is that there's someone out there you're working with in the market. Or you send a staff there to be able to do the job. The reason for this is, if you do not have anybody in the market, how then do you feel the pulse of the market? How do you know how to be able to ensure you maximize the opportunities in the market when there's nobody there representing you as an exporter? Now, when you have such representative, it's very important you also state it in your proposal to the bank as an exporter. Reason being that it also finds a way of giving the bank comfort that you have structures. That even if, for any reason, the buyer says no more interested, there is a company on ground, a representative on ground, that might be able to get the good across to another buyer. Because it does happen that someone has placed an order for product, and at the end of the day is unable to buy it. Not because he doesn't want to buy it, but because there is no cash flow. As of the time that was needed, there was no cash flow. There was no cash flow. And you also don't want to wait endlessly. So, you have to find a way also to ensure that you protect yourself by looking for another person who is willing to pay immediately, rather than waiting for him to pay whenever it is that he will be able to afford to pay you. If this representative is an agent of the buyer who help to source for buyer, monitor clearing and delivery, witness quality inspection and follow up on payment, then it will be valuable to inform the bank. If this representative is an agent of the seller, rather, of the exporter, who helps in sourcing for buyer, monitors the delivery. So he sources for buyer, monitor the clearing and delivery of the product, witness quality inspection, follow up on payment, then it will be valuable to inform the bank about this relationship. In order to reduce the perceived risk of a transaction. You know, sometimes when bank gives you an interest on a loan, sometimes they price into it the risk they are taking. So sometimes the price is high because of the risk. In the same market where some people are taking loan at 27% in Nigeria, that will be outrageous for a lot of countries in the developed world. But in Nigeria, it can be up to 27-30%. In the same market, some people are doing under 20%, 17-16%. Why? The perceived risk on their organization is very, very low. So the bank is willing to lend. But the SMEs, the perceived risk on them is very, very high. The bank is skeptical in lending. Very skeptical. Having strong concern. Why? Probably they might not be able. They might not be able to pay back. And that concern, a valid concern. The concern is a valid concern. But when you are showing that you have a representative at the destination, either a staff of yours, an agent over there, whichever way this is done, what is important here is the fact that you have a representative abroad. And this representative you have abroad can help to source for buyers. So that means there is always a buyer. Not just source for the buyer. This representative abroad can also help to monitor payment, to follow up on payment. That is very important. That is extremely, extremely, extremely important. It's also going to help in the clearing, monitor the clearing and delivery. If there is need for inspection at destination, it's going to help to witness quality inspection and destination. And like I said, follow up on payment. If you have such arrangement, then you're going to give your bank a lot of comfort. A lot of big businesses into export in Nigeria, this is the kind of model they operate in. So you have ABC Limited in Nigeria, ABC Limited in Singapore, in China, in UK, in the US. There's a leg of the business here, there's a leg on the other side. A partner, a rep, or a company you incorporate. These are the things that make businesses that have been in export for a long time to be very sustainable. To be very sustainable. To be very, very sustainable. This arrangement is of great value, particularly to exporters under open account. So imagine open account. For those just joining, open account means I'm shipping goods to the buyer. I'm sending documents to the buyer. I'm shipping goods to the buyer. I'm sending documents to the buyer. The buyer clear the goods with the document and pay me afterwards. The buyer clear the goods with the document and pay me afterwards. That's an open account transaction, and there's a risk on that. But when you have a rep at destination, the risk is almost completely eliminated. Because now there's a rep who can easily get you someone else. Uche Naji, thank you very much for joining. You're welcome. Who can easily get you someone else to pick up the goods. You don't know how valuable a rep at destination is. It's so important and it's so critical. It gives credibility. It helps whoever it is that want to support that transaction to be able to support it, to be able to fund it. Why? There's a comfort that, look, if the performance risk is taken care of, that's locally, the payment risk at destination has been taken care of because there's a rep there. So it's like you have presence on both sides. And like I said, when you are exporting, you can actually do it on 3 levels. You can export, there is what is called, when you are entering a new market, you can do it on 3 levels. There is the export mode, there is the partnership mode, and there is the investment mode. When you are exporting, you can do it on 3 levels. There is the export mode, there is the partnership mode, and there is the investment mode. In the export mode, you can have direct and indirect. Abdul Hamid Makinde, thank you very much for joining. Good evening. You can do direct and indirect. You can have direct and indirect under export mode. What happens in export mode? You are shipping directly to the end user, either through a middleman or directly. But that's the export mode. Export mode can be direct or indirect. The partnership mode involves a situation where I partner with someone there, either because the person on the other side is partnering with me as to do contract production, is partnering with me through franchising, is partnering with me through licensing, is partnering with me through joint venture. But what is important is that I am partnering with someone on the other side to sell in that country. In the export mode, in the investment mode, I move into that country, set up a structure and produce there and sell there. In all these cases, there is still purchasing power brought back to headquarters in Nigeria. As long as purchasing power are brought back to the headquarters in Nigeria, you are exporting. Either with the partnership mode or with the investment mode. Now, I'm making reference to that because I want to talk about the 2 options available under the export mode. Because we are discussing overseas representative as a critical factor in securing export financing. It is a critical factor because it helps to prevent or mitigate the risk of non-payment. It's a critical factor because it helps to prevent or mitigate the risk of non-payment, which is one of the major risks in export business. One of the major risks in export business, the risk of non-payment, the commercial risk or inability to get payment. But with an overseas representative, this risk can be taken care of. And if you're able to communicate this in your proposal to the bank, when securing or sourcing for or applying for export financing, you're going to be giving the bank a lot of comfort that the second leg of the risk profile on this transaction has been significantly reduced by the overseas representative. I will be talking a lot, very soon, as a roundup, around the options available for the overseas representative. This arrangement is of great value, particularly to exporters with open account or bill for collection. If you are listening to us and you're joining us for the first time and you need to know more about open account and bill for collection, you can check our previous video. Remember, this is A to Z of Export Business Financing, Part 11. Part 11. So we've done about 10 series this week discussing A to Z of Export Business Financing. Silas Irabo, thank you very much for joining. Good evening. Bill for collection transaction, because of the payment rate associated with this mode of payment. So when I have a payment mode like bill for collection, a payment mode like open account, that tend to increase my risk in export transaction, it is a wise decision to consider. It is a wise decision to consider using overseas representative. What that means is that right from the word go, if I'm just going into export business, I should begin to think of how I can set up a structure at destination, how I can raise and have an overseas representative at destination, who can be an agent or even a merchant. However, if exporter is seeking for funding, this arrangement is not to replace the appropriate trade finance instrument to protect the bank loan, but rather it is to play a complementary role of giving bank additional comfort. Dayo Kujero, thank you very much for joining. Good evening. But rather, it gives the bank additional comfort. Chike Modi, thank you very much for joining and good evening. It gives the buyer additional comfort Remember, the more you can demonstrate to the bank to show them your credibility and competence to make this transaction successful, the easier it is for you to get the financing, and also the cheaper it is the pricing of the financing. The cheaper the pricing of the financing. The cheaper the pricing of the financing. The cheaper the pricing of the financing. So, if you are seeking for finance and you have representative, it's not necessary that it's replacing any required mitigating measures like letter of credit. But if I've been doing it regularly and I have a rep at destination and I'm not using letter of credit, a bank can consider financing if I'm also contributing equity that is significant. The whole idea is this: with overseas representative, you can significantly reduce the risk of non-payment and make it easier for the bank to be willing to fund. It is very advisable for an exporter that intends to grow in a sustainable manner to put this type of arrangement in place. This is because it increases the chance of growth. This is because it helps the exporting company to have multiple buyers for its product at destination and increase the chance of growth. Having a rep at destination, when I started, I talked about the function, the benefit of a rep at destination. That number one, a rep at destination helps an exporter to source for more buyers. Number two, a rep at destination helps an exporter to monitor clearing and delivery. Number three, a rep at destination helps to witness the quality confirmation, quantity confirmation at destination. And a rep at destination helps to follow up on payment. All these create comfort. But the very first one, which is sourcing for more buyers, is so interesting because what that means is that this person can be in this business for a long time. And the mortality rate of export businesses in Nigeria is very, very high. If every business in Nigeria, let's say, like in the US, at some point it was reported that for every 10 business that start up in 5 years, only, for every 100 business that start up in 5 years, only 10 will be remaining. And after 10 years, only 1 will be remaining. After 10 years. But in Nigeria, after 1 year, the mortality rate is usually very high. Some businesses don't survive the very first year. Now, where I'm going is this. Let's assume the mortality rate of a business in Nigeria is 50%. The mortality rate of export business is higher than 50%. Why? Because of inadequate understanding of the kind of structure that need to be put in place to make the business sustainable. For example, we've been shipping some finished product to the UK for over 2 years now. Now, those products we're shipping to the UK, it's been sustained for 2 years, even though there have been challenges with pricing, there have been challenges in the market, but because there's a rep at that destination, a partner at the destination, a merchant at the destination, the business has been able to pass through all those storms and still stay afloat to the extent that there was still shipment in January. Almost every month, or sometimes every other month, there's a shipment. Why? It's survived for 2 years, mainly because of a rep at destination. Mainly because of a rep at destination. Mainly because of a rep at destination. And this is very important. This is extremely important. So having a representative at destination is for me a live wire for sustainability of an export business. So that means if you are starting and you don't have a rep, you should begin to look for rep. Even though you are shipping directly to the buyer now, begin to look for rep. So that it helps you to have more options. And when the buyer you are dealing with knows you have more options, it gives you more leverage for pricing. Because then you have 3 people giving different prices. And then you can always go for a better price. And of course, it can make the buyer to also begin to up his game if he deems you as a worthy partner and your product is very good and important for the sustainability of his own business. So like I said earlier, it's very advisable for an exporter that intends to grow in a sustainable manner to put this type of arrangement in place. The arrangement where you have someone at destination beside the end user of the product. And I said this because it helps the exporting company to have multiple buyers for his product at destination. Why? Because this agent, this partner, is looking for other buyers. This raises the demand and increases the chance for the growth of the business. And it also helps the exporter to be able to accept any payment method, especially the ones that increase the exposure to payment risk. Now, there are 4 payment methods. I've repeated this severally. Major payment method in international trade in the world. One of them is open account. Open account is not very safe. It's deemed to be risky because I'm going to send document to the buyer. I'm going to send so I'm going to ship to the buyer rather, then send document to the buyer. Then the buyer will clear the goods and then pay me after certain days, 60 days, 90 days after I have cleared the goods. So there's a risk of him deciding not to pay, either because he's doing deliberately being fraudulent or inadvertently because of negative dynamics of business. Now, even though that open account is very, very risky, like they said, 80% of trade transactions in the world is done, or they are done rather, on open account. As risky as you think open account might be, also called cash against document, 80% of trade transactions in the world are done on open account. Adolphus Ali, thank you very much for joining. Good evening. 80% of trade transactions in the world are done on open account. So the question we should be asking ourselves is, how are the other people in the world doing it? Other people transacting in the world, how are they doing it? And remember, Africa trade volume is less than 3% of the world trade. African trade volume is less than 3% of the world trade. So don't use our demand for letter of credit or bill for collection to judge, if you understand what I'm saying. The world is doing over $17.5 trillion, 2017. We're still waiting for data of 2018. Over $17.4 trillion in 2017. Africa did less than 3% of that. Europe did about 33% of that. And Europe is doing open account. Asia is doing open account. Even America is doing open account. Why are they doing open account? Rhoda Macaulay, thank you very much for joining. Good evening. Abraham Shagbohon, I hope I pronounced it very well. Thank you very much for joining. Good evening. So what that means is that putting a mechanism to be able to mitigate that risk becomes necessary. Because you must accept that payment method. You can't say you don't want to accept it. Why? Many people in the world are accepting it. So you cannot say you don't want to accept it. You rather must learn to fight. You can't run away from the battle. You must learn to fight. You must learn to mitigate the risk. And hear this. One of the ways to mitigate that risk is to have a representative on the other side. One of the ways to mitigate that risk of non-payment is to have a representative on the other side. To watch the previous video, please go to my timeline. You see my name, Bamidele Ayemibo. You see the previous video. If you also search for my name on YouTube, Bamidele Ayemibo on YouTube, you also see it on my channels. All the previous edition, the first from 1 to 10, that's part 1 to 10, you'll find them on my channels on YouTube or on my timeline right here on Facebook. Right here on Facebook. So, mitigating that risk becomes necessary because with a rep at destination, you're able to mitigate the risk. And that's very important. Very important. Like I said, it increases the chance of growth. It also helps the exporter to be able to accept any payment method, especially the ones that increase the exposure to payment risk. Since the representative abroad can witness quality inspection and follow up on payment. The representative abroad can witness the quality inspection and follow up on payment. So let me now talk about I mentioned three levels of export. I talk about the fact that in your exporting business, you can start with the export mode, and then you move on to the partnership mode, and then the investment mode. And I talk about the export mode is a situation where you ship directly to the buyer, or you ship indirectly to the buyer, but you are producing in your own country in both cases. In partnership and investment, you are producing somewhere else, probably in the export market in another third country, somewhere else. Now, in indirect export, you are still giving the goods to someone in your country to do the shipment. We do that very well. We call it cooperative export. We collect products together from different SME producing and ship it to the UK. You can give it to an agent. An agent can arrange the shipment, or you can give it to a merchant who buys off you and then sell in the export market. But you can now have the indirect mode. Indirect mode. In which case, I have an overseas agent, or I have an overseas distributor that I am working with. Kazim Ishak Oladimegi, thank you very much for sharing the video. We can share with our friends who might be interested. Thank you very much for sharing and joining us. Overseas distributor and overseas agent. Overseas distributor and overseas agent. A distributor is someone who buys from you and resell, but you're partners. You work together on the project. But an agent is someone who looks for buyer for you. When you ship directly to the end user. The agent earns a commission. He doesn't buy from you and resell. A merchant or a distributor buys from you and resell. But an agent helps you to look for that buyer. You ship directly to the buyer, but he earns a commission. He will still help you follow up with payment because he earns commission from payment. He helps you look for buyer. So the lesson tonight, as I round up, is that you should work towards having someone at the destination when you are thinking of export business. If you're going to be able to get financing, if you're going to be able to give the bank a comfort, real comfort to show them that you are up to the task in doing this business, then it will be very, very important for you to have a rep at destination. You might not get that rep at the beginning, but work towards it. I can assure you there's a Nigerian in that destination that is credible you can work with. I have found Nigeria in China that we work with. I found in Dubai that we work with. I found that's in UAE, and I found the United Kingdom that we work with. We're currently looking for one in the US to work with. So you can always find in Nigeria in the same line of business, interestingly, that you can work with. Thank you very much for listening to me again today. My name remains Delaye Mibo from 3D Invest Trade Academy. This is Import Export Platform brought to you by 3D Invest Trade Academy. We come up every day in the morning by 8 a.m. and in the evening by 6 p.m. on weekdays. But on weekends, on Sundays in the afternoon I will come up, and then in the evening, afternoon around 1, 2 p.m. and in the evening around 6 p.m. Sorry, around 7 p.m. And on Saturday, we do pretty much the same thing, 7 a.m. in the morning, and of course in the evening by 7 or 8 p.m. depending on how early we're able to settle down from the traffic of Lagos. Thank you very much for listening again today. See you tomorrow. Bye for now.